Good evening. My name's Bruce Scherer. I'm the chairman of the School Building Committee, which is looking at alternatives to Dexter Park. We've been at this almost 2 years now. And I've been doing this presentation to all of our boards and commissions and agencies and so forth to try to bring people into the fold or up to speed on what the progress has been. But to start off with, I wanted to answer the first question, which many people may have, which is why are we doing this? And so we have to start with the condition of Dexter Park School. Dexter Park, which was built in the early 50s, I believe 51, is in the first case undersized for the student body that's there. And it's undersized by the criteria that the MSBA, the Massachusetts School Building Authority, provides. They are interested in having a school that functions according to modern criteria, and that would be the amount of classrooms, the amount of staff spaces for principal, nurse, speech pathologist, those sorts of things, occupational therapy. The amount of classroom space and the size of those classroom spaces, the size of the gymnasium, the cafeteria, etc. And here's the pointer, so I don't know if the camera can look at this, but all of these inadequacies are listed right here, you know, that people can take a look at. But so, and I don't need to go through this over and over again, but the building is in seriously deteriorated condition. We've had this condition in the basement for quite some time, with concrete spalling off of the beams that are actually holding up some of the classrooms. The re-rod is rotting. Here's another view of that. There's been a variety of leaks over the years with mold and other conditions in the building. We have overcrowded spaces. You know, this is, you know, basically the teacher's access. It's in the hallway. Here's another hallway that has refrigeration and other storage that's in it. And it's likely that all of the services that are provided to the building, all the utilities, would not meet current code. Beyond that, the 20-odd options that the school building committee has looked at, we did look at what it would take just to bring this, just to stabilize this building. The MSBA would not be party to that because it would still be an undersized building, and they want any project that they're involved in to come up to current standards. But if we just tried to stabilize this building, we'd still be looking at $17 to $20 million of town money that would needed to be expended in order to stabilize. I mean, we didn't do a super in-depth analysis of this. You know, I'm not sure if the number would be 16.5 or 22, but this is, you know, generally the amount of money that we'd be spending to bring this building, just to stabilize the building. So we came up with another alternative. And what we, as a committee, have looked to do is to provide the most cost-effective way of providing educational opportunity to the kids in Orange. So while we did look at other options that we actually like better, this was the most cost-effective way of doing it. What you're looking at here is this is the old or the current Fisher Hill School, which is in need of upgrades as it is. It needs a roof, HVAC system, new windows, etc. The building's 25 years old, and all of those costs would be rolled into this project and be part of the reimbursement that we would get from the state. So this little thumb right here represents the new construction that we would do. In addition to that, we would, and this is really a major part of the project here, is to construct a secondary access road. Police, fire, highway, all concur that for safety reasons, this is a really intrinsic part of the project. And what would happen is, although we wouldn't make Dexter Street one way officially for school purposes, everybody would enter Dexter Street. Buses would continue to circulate, and the kids would get on and off at the appropriate time in front of the school, the older grades. Parents and vans would circulate up to what is now the front of Fisher Hill. It would become the rear of the building. And we have a pre-K access here, and then access for older students here if, somebody came up with kids that were in several different grades and parent were dropping off. Once the buses were finished unloading this intersection, we made absolutely sure that it was quite level and had really good sight lines, because one of the problems that we have now is traffic is confused and congested at best. So this is the only point where we'd have crossing traffic, and then as these parents come up, everybody would exit this new access road. There would be ability, most of the traffic would be headed south, but there is the ability to go north if necessary. We reworked this plan several times in order to minimize the cost. We changed the playground calculation and formulation, so these are all fairly tight to the building, although kids would have access to come down to a new meadow that would be created, that I personally have volunteered to seat in at no cost to the town, where Dexter Park is now. The play field that was originally billed as a baseball diamond, we reduced that, so it's just a play field. We thought it was an expense that we could get away from. Actually, building a baseball diamond is fairly expensive. So, over the course of the time that we've had public hearings and, looking at comments that people have made on Facebook, we've tried to incorporate those wherever applicable. So just to give another view of what the school would look like. This is the new front of the building where visitors would come in and where the buses would drop off their kids. This is currently the front of the building, would now become the rear of the building. There's a small addition over here that would be for a new kitchen, so that the cafeteria would be up to the size that would be necessary. Here's another view of the cafeteria from what is currently the front of Fisher Hill. This is a front view of the new building that would be built. And here's another view of the play areas. I don't know if anybody has any questions there. And then, in the last case, this is the new building that generally houses the Family Resource Center, our occupational and physical therapy, speech, the nurse, and administrative services. So from security point of view, when people come up to the building after school's in session, there would be cameras in front. You'd be buzzed into a lobby, but you wouldn't have access to the school quite yet. Once you're in the lobby, you would then be buzzed into an alcove here where identification would be presented, and if everything was okay, which I assume it would be, then you'd be allowed in through another door and access to the building if you were picking up a kid or something. And then this shows you the new layout. So in the what is the where we are currently, what's now the front of the building, the office space would be turned into a music practice room. The expanded cafeteria would become the cafeteria as well as the auditorium. This shows the new kitchen. So we'd have a stage. This was really important. This came up a number of different meetings. Parents and grandparents wanted to be able to see their kids, do their performances and so forth. These are all classroom spaces. The purple areas represent what's called extra learning spaces. So our goal through this whole process was to meet the needs of the educators that are working here. And they described an educational program that is really the heart of what we're doing. We're not just building a building, but we're creating something that allows for the educational vision of the people that are working for us to have their vision come to fruition. And that's why the layout of the building, having the media center, we have science, technology, and art spaces over here, the interaction between the grade levels, between the teachers. This is all an important part of what the program is, and this building has been designed to allow for that. We started out with a budget of about $66 million total costs. That includes all the soft costs. I think the original construction cost was $53 million. Our construction cost now is down to $46 million and change, with a total, I think the total, including soft costs, is about $53 million. So we've been hard at it trying to bring the cost down, but still have the educational program be solid and whole, because that's really what the whole program is about. So if there are any questions, that's my brief presentation. Oh, Monday, we will find out from the MSBA what their reimbursement rate will be. So we're looking.
What's the estimate at this point for the percentage?
I have no idea.
No.
I mean, they tell us straight up, don't guess, because you don't know, and neither do we, until they go through all their paperwork.
So they've given no indication?
No.
Okay. What is for the finished construction, what's the per square foot cost, do you know?
You'd have to do the division. I think we're at about 98 and change.
That's usable space?
Yes, 98,000 and change square feet, and it's, you can use either construction money or the total, the 53 million total, including soft costs.
Yeah, I got to back that up. Okay.
So that's about $500 a square foot, is that right? Including soft costs. And it's 46 million in construction costs. So I don't know how you want to calculate.
Yeah, I'm looking at construction cost only.
Yeah.
I think you were running about 25% when you took the soft costs, including the engineering contingency at the time when I last participated in the evaluation of the project. I think it was 25 to 30% total of non-construction project costs.
Well, if you go from 53 to 66, whatever that percentage would be.
So that's come down to, okay. I don't have any other questions. Do you have questions for me?
Yeah, Bruce, when you did this for the Finance Committee the other night, you ran through the process that you used in order to arrive at this, which included a really good summary of why we are not using Butterfield School as a school.
Sure.
And we continue to get questions about that, so could you just,
I'd be happy to.
30 seconds on it?
Sure. So in order to propose a project to MSBA, you need to control all the square footage that the building will be built on. Butterfield School, the campus of Butterfield School, is simply too small to accommodate what the criteria are for building a school. So we would have to acquire, at town expense, we estimated between 5 and 6 private properties, tear them down, dispose of them, and that would not be covered at all. The building itself, Butterfield School, although it's a very nice-looking building, actually has a very low, the classrooms are quite small, and the gross square footage compared to the net square footage is high. So, in other words, there's a lot of unusable space in Butterfield School. So when we went through the process, what we were looking at was a huge expense in terms of acquiring and demolishing properties. That was sort of a non-starter. And then the other one that really sort of killed it for me, because I was all in on Butterfield. When I got on the committee, that's what I wanted to do. But what we discovered was that we would have to gut the entire building and add a new front to the building. So what you drive by now is not what you would see if we were to do that. And so the emotional attachment that everyone has to that building, it just wouldn't be the same, aside from the financial impact. So
thank you.
this just made the most sense. The other piece, let me just say that having one building from an operational standpoint is just where we want to be going forward, managing our finances.
There's also the fact that the MSBA has a minimum square foot per student for space use.
Exactly. That's why we would have had to
Yeah.
acquire the properties. There's no parking, particularly at Butterfield. It was problematic.
Any other questions for Bruce?
No, not for Bruce. I have one for Gabe.
Okay.
So one of the things I learned last night, we had candidates in that last night, and we were talking about the financing of this school, and one of my thoughts was that it costs us a lot of money to send kids out of town to schools that do meet the qualifications. And I heard that there are 82 children who could go to the Orange school system who choice to another system, $5,000 a kid, so that's over $400,000 we are paying out of pocket to send our kids somewhere else. That sounds to me like a pretty good offset to the cost of financing this building. Is there anything wrong with my math when I say that?
I hate to off the cuff just say yes or no, so I can explore that and make sure we're on the right path with that.
Yeah.
I know that there's a huge outlay, and we would hope that those kids would come back. So let me get back to you on that.
Okay,
Can I comment on that?
sure.
I know that Athol's experience is that they've had kids come back into their elementary system since they've built the new school.
Well, it makes perfect sense. Why would you?
Right.
Why would you not take advantage of a brand-new school? I would hope we would have a positive flow of kids from out of town wanting to come here, as well as our own kids wanting to stay here.
I mean, it's the very precept of spending all that money to create a new school space, because people react positively to it.
There's no question about it. So, just in closing, I mean, I think coming from Dexter Park, which is a building that is functionally obsolete, into a new building that, has all of these assets that our kids have never experienced. And I think they're as deserving of that as any other town in Massachusetts.
Is this where I say I got caught on the roof of Dexter Park when I was in grade school? No?
Sure. And other great stories.
If I may, Bruce, can you talk about, you compared, I believe it was Belmont, and our price. Some people think we're paying a lot for a new school building, but what you said at one of the meetings I attended was very telling about how much it costs in another area to build the same square footage. So would you mind going over that?
Belmont last year was the most expensive school project in Massachusetts. That's no longer true. And last year, when they voted on their school, it was $295 million. The folks in Belmont will be paying on an average tax bill. I just spoke to a woman today. The average tax bill in Belmont's going up $1,800.
Oh, my God.
That made me
That's a
sick.
true number, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
Just to pay the debt on the school project.
And that's not including their override. And that was supported in Belmont by over 70%.
Wow.
Well, the relative wealth
Right.
quotient is much different.
Well, which is why I will argue with anyone that will listen that, our kids are just as deserving of a good education as the kids in Belmont.
Right.
And, state money needs to flow here in order to ensure that.
Wow. Another benefit that just wasn't stated in regards to the choice of the addition to Fisher Hill outside of the Butterfield is that we have the ability to fund with the state money the demolish
That's-
Dexter Park. Whereas if we had gone a different route, we would have simply been abandoning it and the town
Right.
would have been on the hook again for another abandoned building.
Right.
So,
Once-
huge benefit of this project.
Once we were off this campus, any costs related to this campus would be borne by the town.
Right.
So upgrading the Fisher Hill building, demolishing Dexter Park. I mean, to be perfectly candid, our first choice was to build a brand-new building on the Mahar campus.
Right.
It's flat, it's got great access, it makes all the sense in the world, it's associated with the other building, but we would still be stuck with these costs. So it was just a non-starter. Because I want to say again, for everyone that's listening, we're trying to do this in the most cost-effective way we can. It has to be done, one way or the other, it has to be done. So we might as well do it in a smart way.
Awesome.
So the larger question for me is, what are the current efforts, organized efforts, of persuading enough folks to come out and vote to support this? Who's driving that process? Is there any effort of outreach? Because otherwise, there's a probable risk that we may be stuck having to do something else if this doesn't pass.
Well, I can tell you that we do have, there's another organization that's not part of the school building committee, that's a private, it's essentially a PAC, that is now legal, that will be accepting money, but we have until June. So the first effort that I'm doing are these, little demonstrations to every, and I was serious, every board, every committee, every commission, because everybody knows somebody else. And so when someone asks you about the school, you'll have more information to tell them. I mean, that's my goal. We've held public hearings, nobody shows up.
You got to get out the vote.
Nobody shows up. And so the only way I could see doing it was, rather than asking people to come to see us, I was going to go and see them. So I know Jane's been bored by this 2 or 3 times, but,
It gets better every time.
It does.
well, I have a pointer now.
I'm hoping for the laser next time.
Yeah, well, that's out of my budget. This was pretty good. Are we all set?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much, Bruce.
Thanks, Bruce.
Very much appreciated.